faces.
Cat, get your face off of the computer. Go work. Hello.
Hello.
Harry's trying to say hello too by chewing on my stinking laptop.
Oh no. Go away, kitty cat. Go away.
I started swatting at him and he started swatting back. But hello, everyone. Welcome to the discussion for The Witch's Daughter by Paula Brackston. See, Alicia's always the prepared one.
It's nice to have a visual.
Yeah. So we'll just go ahead and start with our ratings. It was a read for me, so I didn't change my rating. It's still like a 5-star for me. So
I am probably gonna DNF it because I'm not even halfway, and I struggle to read historical fiction. So
which is understandable. I go back and forth with the type of historical fiction I like. So
yeah,
this happens to be one of those ones that I happen to like.
I'm kind of nervous because if this is historical fiction, and I think Addie LaRue is somewhat historical because it's in the 1700s, I think. So I'm kind of.
Yeah,
I hope it's not, but
I think it's supposed to be kind of like a mix of the two because she kind of somewhat time travels since she's a immortal. So,
yeah,
but yeah.
we shall see. This one, however, nope. I struggled a little bit. I got up to the point where I think they accused Bess's mom.
Okay.
So that's where I left off.
I had read the book like mixture physically and audibly. So
Mm-hmm.
I did enjoy the audiobook when I had listened to it. It helped a lot to kind of speed through it.
That's what I was using. I think I put it at I fluctuated because sometimes I could do 2.0 speed, and then sometimes I would do 2.5, and then I was like, wait, I gotta slow it down because they're going way too fast, and I couldn't find it in the book, and so I went
Yeah.
back and forth. But it did help a little.
I'm trying to think. What so far with what you have read, what part of it have you enjoyed?
Um, there are little bits and snippets. Forget the guy's name. It's the guy that shows up randomly, and he makes magic things happen, and then he just talks to her, and things happen, and then he's disappears.
Oh, Gideon.
Is that his name, Gideon?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, him. Because I'm like, well, because I know this has to do with somewhat of the witch, witches and stuff like that, but um, I didn't expect a guy to be kind of magical in this one.
Yeah, I think it was like I'm pretty sure you got past where she helps her mom with the birth scene.
Yes,
That made me squirm.
very much so.
I'm like, I was
Just
listening to it on my way to work too, and it just started talking in detail about the birth scene, and I'm like slowly turning down the volume of it. I'm like, I'd rather not get queasy on my way to work.
yeah, that was. I did not expect that one because I was just like, oh, okay, they're gonna go help with another woman, and then I started listening to the audiobook about that point, and I was just like, oh, why would you go into detail about this?
Yeah, yeah. So that made me squirm, and um, this comes after the part where you're at, but the death of her mom really kind of hurt my heart a little bit.
Oh no.
Yeah.
How does her mom pass away?
She ends up being hanged for being a witch.
Oh, so they accused
Yeah.
her of. Yeah, that's probably coming up soon because I'm at the part where I guess they've accused her and now they're at the house watching her for 2 nights, and there's
Mm,
like these bears or something that are in the house.
yeah.
There's like people freaking out and
Yeah. And going back a bit to like them losing like her dad and her brother and sister to like the sickness or the plague or
Mhm.
whatever. I felt bad so she can have one living child. And I was like stab in the heart whenever she was ended up being killed.
Yeah, I could see that though.
Hmm.
She's practically lost her family to either the plague or to accusation.
Yeah, and I love the how she sprinkles in like the herbology throughout the book. Um, I think that was probably this book was maybe my first real look into the actual like Sabbats and herbology and how all their herbs are used in witchcraft before I was even started my practice. Because I think when I read this was almost 10 years ago when I first read it. Maybe not quite 10 years ago, but it had been quite a while since I had read it, and I was pleasantly surprised when I was rereading it and realizing it had all these terms. I'm like, hey, I actually know all of this now.
Yeah, and it was interesting because they like they added that stuff in, but also like they set it up so that it kind of looked like journal entries in a
Hmm.
way too. So that could kind of go along with like the Book of Shadows, and
Yeah,
she just dated it, and so that
and
was
it does continue on throughout that. During like this flashback scene that you're in, once that ends, it goes back to the like the present time, and
mm-hmm.
then she continues her storytelling um to the girl. I'm forgetting her, blanking on her name now. I'm terrible with names.
Tegan.
Tegan. Yeah, Tegan. She tells her about like other parts of like her story about when she had to change her identity. She becomes like a surgeon's assistant
Mm.
in another like flashback scene, and the descriptions of that is not any better from the birth scene. It gets really descriptive with those scenes when she's helping the surgeon. So, and it's happened around like the Jack the Ripper time as well, and she's trying to run away from Gideon. You'll learn if you continue on. There's a whole plot line with Gideon where she goes to him for help, and she ends up somewhat having feelings for him, but then realizing the magic that he has is the dark magic, and she wants nothing to do with the dark magic. And
Uh,
yeah, and he chases her after, like throughout the time. Like he's pretty much trying to like capture her to make her into following like the devil dark side type of magic, and she's just trying to run away from him, and she is thinking that he has something to do with like the Jack the Ripper murders, which that's the one plot line that doesn't get like tied up is trying to see who actually killed all those women, but he ended up being a whole different person. And then it has flashes back to the present, and then like the very last flashback section is when it talks about where she met her first true love and his sacrifice for her.
oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's her first true love. um his mom is a medium, so
Yeah.
he it believes in the witchcraft stuff like that, so he knew what she was before she even like told him, and then he sacrificed himself to try to save her from Gideon. And then there's a big battle scene with those two. Tegan and Elizabeth with against Gideon because ends up being Tegan's boyfriend. He's disguised as her boyfriend.
Of course there is, because why would we not tie all three together?
Mm-hmm.
Why?
Yeah.
He was using Tegan just to get to Elizabeth.
Yep.
Hmm.
Trying to take. And also, I think the whole thing was trying to like manipulate Elizabeth's feelings because she was starting to have like the motherly feelings towards Tegan, like taking away something that she loves again. So, because
So
he kept,
Tegan is in a way like her daughter, because she doesn't have kids of her own, does she?
mm-mm. Yeah,
Hmm.
she kind of resigned to the fact since she was living so long and with her lifespan, she would just watch the people she loves grow old and die, and she couldn't handle that. And it wasn't until that last relationship that when he like sacrificed himself, she just told herself that she wasn't going to put herself through that.
That makes sense. I think I vaguely remember something about in the beginning it said that she had been 300 and something.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, to live that long. That would
Hmm.
be interesting to see how world progresses as you age to that point.
Yeah, and I think her last like story that she ends up telling to Tegan before they have like the major battle against Gideon is
Hmm.
when she's a nurse in the First World War, and that's how she met her her uh, love that sacrificed himself. He was a I forgot what part of the military he was, but he was a soldier in the military.
And that's in this book.
Yeah, it's closer to the end
Um,
of it. So I
there's
think
just
altogether there are like three like stories that good sections that she is telling Tegan about her past life, and it wasn't until like maybe the last one that Tegan started kind of realizing that she's talking about herself in these stories.
hmm. I do like how they named the sections,
Hmm.
different parts of the year. Or she says like April 19th, first quarter.
Yeah,
Those are all interesting. Oh, what was
and I
that?
think these books were maybe, or at least this book itself, is probably my first introduction into like historical fiction
Hmm.
because it wasn't until like I read this one that I really started getting into that genre.
I hate that in the one scene when I'm trying to remember, when they were like Thomas got sick and then they found out what it was and then Margaret got sick
Mhm.
and then the dad got sick. And I
Yeah,
was like, well, this whole family's gonna go.
yeah, and the mom somehow isn't the only one that has didn't start getting sick. She was the caretaker of all of them. She was exposed the most to them, but yet she wasn't getting sick at all.
Yeah.
Elizabeth was, or Bess was. She was exposed to it, and then that's when her mom like pulled her back from the brink of death.
Yeah, I was like, the mom's the one that has to be the caretaker, so how did she not get it?
Hmm.
And then, of course, we all know how, like, well, people watching don't know
Hmm.
unless they read it, but how Bess came back, and I was just like, oh, hmm.
Hmm.
But how would her mom even know to go to Gideon?
Because I think there was like rumors that there's something about him that was different than the rest of the villagers.
Yeah.
So because he lived out in the woods, away from everybody.
Well, so did they, I guess, but they lived out in like I guess well they had a farm, so
Mhm.
they weren't too out in the woods.
Yeah,
But they
I
weren't like
pictured. Yeah, I pictured them being like on the outskirts, like just before you get into the woods. At least that's what I like in my head. I was picturing like
mm-hmm.
them being on the outside going into town, but Gideon was like in the woods.
Mm.
Did you get to the scene about Gideon and the gypsy?
That was the one that was I think tied to a tree.
Yeah,
Yeah, I saw that one. I'm not sure what to make of that scene really.
yeah.
I don't know if he was trying to sway her to his side or he was just trying to have his way with her.
I think during that he was raping her. At least that's how I read it.
Yeah, I thought that was probably cuz but he had her like tied up and I was like, well, she's not going anywhere cuz she's tied to a tree. So I thought
Mhm.
maybe he was going to sacrifice her or something and then he heard other people off in the distance and like
Then yeah,
like put her
like
to
his
sleep or
ritual,
something.
like his ritual got
Interrupted.
yeah, interrupted. And there is kind of a similar scene that happens right after Beth's mom died. Harry, go away. 'Cause-
But mom.
but there's kind of a similar scene where he's in the middle of a ritual and he's like summoning like an entity that will grant Beth the like everlasting life kind of thing, like him, but it's the dark version. And he starts having sex with these like spire demons that come out, and she sees all of this and panics and runs away from him.
See,
And that's what like really clicks in her head that she's like, I need to stay away from him. I need to like run as far as I can. But then she does end up getting caught by the villagers because they come after her next.
mm, this is why we can't have nice things. And then I also had when Bess's mom sent her to, I don't want to say it was a tavern because I don't think they called it a tavern, but when she had to go sell the cider.
Yeah, like an ale house or something like that.
Maybe that was it. I don't remember what they called it, but she had to go and sell the cider and like she like left the cider with the horse and then it disappeared and it reappeared and disappeared again.
Yeah.
I was like, what?
It's like, am I on something right now? Are you pulling my leg right now?
Yeah, that's kind of how I felt about it because I was like, well, the fact that she just went in there and was like, hey, I'm here to sell cider, but there's no cider in her hands. But then you realize that she left it on the horse and then they were like, oh, well, that's gone. And I was like, wait, what? Why? And then they were like, she's like, oh, it is gone. And then it was like there because Gideon showed up. And I was like, are they just pulling her leg?
Mm.
I think they're pulling her leg.
Yeah, that part, I like it did confuse me a little bit when it happened, and then I realized it was Gideon that was doing that just to have an excuse to talk to her, because he was drawn from to her from the beginning, and I
Yeah.
think that was the reason why he helped her mom like save her is because he had his eye on her ever since he came into town or something like that.
Maybe because she's similar to him, even though he would be the dark side, she's the light side. And
Yeah, like he mentions like on and off like throughout the book that she has like a powerful like magic inside of her that's like what he has, and he wants to like sway her onto his side so he can I think, manipulate her to use it how he would like or something like that.
He wants to harness the power for himself. Isn't that how they always do it too? You're on the
Mhm.
dark side, and you always have to sway them.
Yep.
No, 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 no. What was your favorite part?
Probably as much
Favorite.
as I enjoyed her like retelling her life, like the past parts, I really enjoyed the like in the presence when she's teaching Tegan like everything about plants and the solstice and the Sabbats and stuff like that. And there's one point where they think it's Beltane that they are about to like celebrate and do a ritual for, that you see them planning for that ritual and them going through um, that phases in it. I found that really interesting.
I think that's the part where I'm just coming up on too. Because Beltane starts. I love how like when she's actually, I guess, when she's telling the story and there's like not like parts to it. So like I stopped at like part 7.
Mm-hmm.
But there's like 2 more parts to it before you even get to the next section.
Yeah,
How long is this story?
that's what I first thought too. Whenever I was like reading like the first one, I'm like, okay, let's see what, how is this gonna end? And then it keeps going. I'm like, are we gonna get back to the future at this point?
Yeah, and then they did like a extract from the Batchcombe court records,
Mm-hmm.
and then it goes into the next section.
I just also like the fact that when she was moving into the cottage that she's at now, that it's puts on the outside of the town that she grew up in, that she's trying to go back home essentially without actually being at
Go
her
back,
home.
go back to her roots.
Hmm.
Now, is this the same cottage that she's in the beginning, or is it a completely different one?
I think it's a different one because I think it's like the town over from the one that she grew up in.
Gotcha.
We have a mocha now. Madam.
Hello, kitty cat.
Madam.
How is the little kitty cat?
She's trying to like, get into her parking spot.
They have reading group questions in the back of my copy.
Oh, really?
Do you want me to ask them?
Sure.
The first one says Gideon is a dark, unsympathetic character, and yet Bess found herself drawn to him. Why is there such a strong attraction to people we can see are bad in literature and in life? Did you, as a reader, find yourself repulsed or intrigued by Gideon?
I was more annoyed with Gideon,
He
not
does seem
people.
annoying.
Yeah, I'm like, bro, take the hint, go away. I think it's just the sense of like forbiddenness that people tend to gravitate toward. They want to have whatever they can't have. Just a human nature kind of thing.
Yeah, he was quite annoying. Even in like the 2 little scenes that I seen of him, and I was like, why does he keep going after her when she clearly has no interest?
Yeah.
Um, question 2. How do you react to the witch trials and surrounding procedures in the book?
Well, the witch trials, I was just sad for old Mary and for her mom. Just how things were when they done nothing but help the village. Because old Mary was the midwife, and her mom was the like midwife's helper and like herbologist kind of, or apothecary type of person. So they'd done nothing but help heal the village. But once things with the plague started going downhill, they automatically have to have somebody to blame.
Isn't that how it always works? You help the village out, and then they turn your back on you.
Hmm.
I
And then
didn't like that either.
with all the other procedures and stuff, it just made me feel kind of icky and squirmy. I'm like, okay, time to speed it up a bit. I
Can
could
we?
have done without that much detail.
Right. Especially when you have to like, especially that scene where like Bess was seemed like she was the only one that could help in the instance of you gotta move around so that I just
Yeah, she had
mm.
small enough hands to get in there to like move the baby, flip the baby over.
And it wasn't her first time. Well, it was her first time doing that with human, but she had said that her she used to help her dad do the same thing with calves,
Yeah.
the cows and stuff. And I was just like, oh, why?
Yeah.
I don't want the visual.
It's like you could just leave it at that. You don't have to describe the feeling and the movements and all that. Yeah. It goes into that as well because there's in the second flashback scene when she's the surgeon assistant, they are having to remove, I think, an appendix or something like that. And the surgeon is getting older and he's losing his eyesight and he starts like he accidentally nicks another organ and it talks about the spray of blood that comes out from that and I'm like,
Oh,
ugh.
come on. Yeah, see, maybe I'm glad I don't finish this.
And then like, it seems like every flashback scene has like some sort of goriness to it because the war, of course, the war scene. They talked
Mm.
about how there was a bomb that had like landed like a mile or two away, and it talked about like some of the soldiers being like torn to pieces. Yeah,
We don't need all that.
yeah.
Mm-mm.
I don't recall her other books that I've read being that graphic because I read The Winter Witch and there's what was the other one I read last year? There's two of them that I read last year that I don't recall them being like that graphic, but those are like I think part of her newer books as well.
Not so much historical.
Well, they're historical. They just don't do like the in present and then flashback type of stuff. It
I got
follows a woman who is starting to learn more about her magic and stuff like that in a
hmm
certain time. I think there's like one that I read was in I think Scotland, I believe, and she like becomes like the some guy's like second wife, um, and is having to be like almost like another ranch hand, and she has this power with like animals and stuff, and like making things grow and all that.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Interesting. The next question says, one of the themes of The Witch's Daughter is identity and trying to pinpoint what makes us who we really are. Is there a pivotal moment or event in which Elizabeth realizes magic is in ex- basically a part of herself? Realizes magic is a part of herself. And I don't know, I can't say the
Strange.
word.
I would think probably at the end of the book, to be honest, when she's trying or like she's slowly come to realize that at the end of like the last flashback scene when she loses her fiance or whatever. And then when she's teaching Tegan about that, all that stuff, she's wanting to share her wisdom of it and what she knows, but it's not all that she is because she lived this long life and she's helped as much as she can, kind of thing. So, but I think she really comes to terms with that at the end when she like pretty much sacrifices herself to save Tegan.
Could be also why, because I remember in the beginning they were saying like the I guess the teachings were passed down from mother to daughter and so on for each generation, and maybe Tegan is her, like, I will pass you my information before I
Mhm.
go.
Yeah, and at the end of the book, she no longer writes the journal passages in the Book of Shadows, and it ends up being the Book of Shadows,
Mm.
explaining at the end. Tegan starts writing in it.
So she kind of takes over.
Yeah,
Hmm.
because the final battle between like Elizabeth and Gideon, they both like end up disappearing
Mm-hmm.
or like fighting each other to like to let both disappear or run off or something. It doesn't really specify, which explains why there's a book two, the Return of the Witch.
Mm.
So, but she ends up taking over the Book of Shadows, and she says that she's gonna like continue writings and stuff from like what she learns and take like finish writing starting what Elizabeth started or something like that.
Gotcha. I will finish what you start.
Hmm.
Um, names play an important role in the story. How are they used to reflect this theme of identity?
Really, it's just she never really changes her name too differently. She always does like some sort of variation on her name, Elizabeth, because there was Bess, and then I forgot what the other two ones, but they still have like an essence of Elizabeth in it. So she's still keeping part of herself with it. But then Gideon, he he like shape shifts into different people and takes on completely new identities to hide and to try to deceive Elizabeth.
Is Eliza, is that
Hmm.
her? Is that one
Yeah.
of them? Trying to see if there's any. What's the other one? There's Bess again towards the end.
Hmm.
Huh.
Trying to think. For some reason, the name Lizette comes in my head, but I don't think that's it. When it comes to names in certain books, I
There's an
can't remember.
there's an Archie.
That's the guy that she fell in love with.
Aww. There's Tegan. Um, I don't see. Meh. Um, it says Bess never uses her magic for personal gain. What do you think about the choice she makes regarding her use of the craft?
She always used it to like heal others. She's always doing something in the medical field to try to help others. Kind of like I guess she wanted to kind of somewhat keep her mother's legacy going because that's the main reason why she lived is because her mom sacrificed herself and she wanted to keep living on for her mom. So I see it as she's just trying to use her powers for good and do what her mom would like her to do.
That's what I took it as, like, because I mean, from what how little I've read, the she always tried to do right by her mom, and she always tried to do what was best, and like even in when she went to go sell the cider, um there were like guys trying to like get to her, and she was just like, I will not have you.
Hmm. To
And
keep
she was
your grubby paws off of me.
exactly. And then you said like she was always helping with the war and medical efforts, and so I think she just carried on what she was taught in a way.
Hmm.
Ooh.
Yeah. It's like learning what she learned from her mom, the herbs, and then also from her dad with helping on the farm too. She learned a lot from her dad as well.
Mm-hmm.
Got to keep
Yep.
that legacy alive.
So that they did not die in vain.
Yeah.
Why is Elizabeth's relationship with Tegan such a crucial one, both for her and for the story? Because it is.
It is what it is. But I think just so she can like continue having her legacy go on through someone that is like a daughter figure for her. So she is passing on the knowledge she learned from her mother and on to Tegan. And then eventually Tegan will do the same later down the line.
That's what I kind of from what I've read. That's kind of what I thought too, because it was just like again, it takes it back to that whole mother passed down information to the next generation. Therefore,
Mm-hmm.
she has to do it at some point. So Tegan was the daughter, so to speak, so she could pass down what she was taught
Yeah.
to keep the legacy going.
And try to like bring that good aspect of the craft to the world and try to overpower what the bad and evil stuff that Gideon was trying to do.
I'll say what Gideon was doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I can't think of the name Gideon without picturing the show Charmed
Mm,
because Gideon was also kind of bad in that show too.
I forgot about that. It's been
Yeah.
so long since I've seen an episode of Charm. It was a show that my mom loved to watch when I was
Hmm.
growing up, so I would always watch a few episodes here and there with her. I completely forgot that that was a character.
Yeah. And if I remember correctly, he was like one of the head of like the magic school. So the fact that he was like running a school of magical children, but going after a specific charmed child, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Mm-mm-mm. That didn't work out so well for him, now did it?
Mm-mm.
Um, let's see. The early 17th century and the early 20th century were both times of great political instability and upheaval. Meanwhile, Victoria's reign provided decades of growth and prosperity for many. Which period in history do you most enjoy in the book and why?
Mm. Probably the time that she was the surgeon assistant, because even though it was during the time of like Jack the Ripper,
Mm-hmm.
it was still women were making those strides into like especially the medical world that we saw with her getting into that. But it's also kind of just everything was at that turning point, like wise as well. So, but before all the war and stuff happened, because it's hard to say like the section about the war was anybody's favorite other than like the love like that she ended up finding because of just it's war. It's hard to say war is your favorite, but
Yeah.
I think just based on how much she was able to accomplish and kind of break stereotypes when she was the medical assistant was probably my favorite.
I think this with the two different centuries, it also shows like how women's roles were in one time period and then they advance in another time period. So it just shows growth of not necessarily a nation, but it shows that they're evolving, and then it also connects into today's time period of all the advancements that we have too.
Yeah.
So that's fun.
Mm.
I don't know which time period. I would probably, if I did finish this, I would probably go with the more modern time period because nobody likes to read about war.
Yeah, no.
The past Tyndale section is perhaps the most visceral part of the book. How did you find yourself responding to the horrors of wartime Flanders? Flanders? Who's Flanders? It's not the
It's
Simpsons' next door neighbor.
no, it's the town that she was. I think it's like somewhere in France, is where they were stationed during the war.
Okay.
Um, it was just hard to read, especially when she first gets to the base that she's supposed to be helping in the like the surgeon's tent and stuff. You just
Mhm.
it's described like hearing bombs and like artillery going off, and it's just a really bleak description of how things were, and it just really did paint that picture of what wartime was like that.
I can definitely see some of the like some of the sentences here because I found like the first part of it.
Mm.
So it's talking about like as returning troops and non-combatants disembarked, the wounded were lumbered onto the train, many on stretchers, other on crutches, all battle weary and setting their sights firmly in the direction of home. Did we find a person? Or a person found you?
Person found me.
Hello.
Howdy.
We're talking about war.
Cool.
Says the military freak over here.
I
Yee.
got one too.
Do what?
Say I got one too.
He sounds hot.
He's out in the living room playing his game again. Days gone.
Ah.
Last question in here. It says, "Put yourself in Elizabeth's place. Are there things that you would have done differently?"
Yes, I would have punched Gideon in the face.
Well, that would be a short story.
Yeah. Like, get away from me, you creep. Punch.
Does she use her magic against him at any point, or is that like
She
towards the end?
she does during like the Jack the Ripper time when she's trying to see like if he's the cause of all the deaths because she also runs a little clinic out of the place that she's staying for the sex workers that are in that area. So
Mm.
it's just like a free clinic. So and all the sex workers that were getting targeted were coming from her clinic. So that's why she was thinking that it was Gideon that was killing them.
Mm-hmm.
So she does use her powers to like try to get rid of him during that. And there's like a battle scene with her and Archie and Gideon when they're fighting against Gideon, and then at the end with her Tegan and Gideon. That's how they end up disappearing.
I got you.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So she was starting to like slowly get used to using her magic for like, good and also trying to use it to protect herself against him and try to get him to go away.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Cat foot.
It's a kitty cat. Hello, kitty cat. Meow meow.
He's like, you touched my butt. I'm going to smack you.
He's like, I was in the window. He's like, who did it?
Mother, why?
Why must you torment me so?
He was bugging the crap out of me earlier, so it's only fair.
He's like, no, do not do that to me, human.
As he goes back behind the computer again so he can rub up on it.
Other thoughts that you might have?
I'm just interested in seeing how things turn out with the second book.
I was gonna say, have you read the second book yet? Or
I
is this
have
gonna
not.
be all new? Oh.
Yeah, it's going to be all new. So I'm interested in seeing how things are, because I'm not even too sure if we follow Tegan like throughout the whole thing, or if it just somehow Elizabeth shows back up and we start following her again.
Let me see. Since I have the book right here. The back of it says, after 5 years in the Summerlands, Gideon has gained his freedom. Elizabeth knows he will go straight for Tegan, and that she must protect the girl she had come to regard as her own daughter. In the time since the dramatic night at Batchcombe Woods, Tegan has traveled the world learning from all manners of witches, and she is no longer the awkward teenager and novice spellcaster she once was. However, her skills are no match for Gideon's dark, vengeful power, and he succeeds in capturing her. Will Elizabeth be able to find her? Will they be able to defeat their nemesis once and for all? In a breathless journey that takes them to the 17th and 19th centuries, witches pursues warlock. Three people steeped in magic weave a new story, but not all will survive until the end.
So we will be following Elizabeth again. I wonder if it's going to switch like point of views and go from like her to going to Tegan and flashing back to what all Tegan has learned during her travels.
It doesn't really say, but this one has more of a chapter setup than like a diary setup.
Mm-hmm.
And so like part 1 is kind of like 2014, and then part 2 starts in 1647.
Interesting.
I'm trying to see if they say names, because I don't really see names. No, I don't really see names. Let me go back.
It feels like I should do like a time travel song. Do-do-do, 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 do-do-do.
I know, right? Yeah, like the first sentence, if you read it, it just says Matravers, February 2014. And then it says Willow Cottage appeared pleasantly unchanged, looking so very much as it had the day I made it my home nearly 6 years before. I'm assuming that would be Elizabeth.
Mm.
But other than that, it doesn't really say who's who and who's talking. That you will have to figure out for yourself.
Next time on this channel.
In the next live, we will discuss who was when and where.
Who,
and
what, when, where, and why. And how.
Exactly. I do see a few new names in here too, so because there's a one that starts with an E, I think it was. There's one that starts with
pull up my calendar. So probably the next live would be on like April 1st, same time. So on this channel, I'm going to be joined by my sister for next time. She did read The Witch's Daughter. She's just having to do a bunch of running around today, so she wasn't able to join in the chat, but she's going to join me on screen to discuss book 2. Yeah.
I will be in the comments for that one, asking you guys all of the questions.
Yeah.
Did we have any comments this time around? I don't think so.
Not this time around. We had a couple of people like pop in and out, but no comments, which it's all good. We had a good kind of roll going with our discussions. So how much longer are you gonna give that book until you decide to call it?
I think I'm gonna call it.
Mm.
Because like I said, I've been trying to read some of it here and there, and with the audiobook, I've been steadily like I woke up this morning, I had breakfast, I read some of it, and then I went to the grocery store, and then I read some more of it before I came in here to get on the computer. And it was like that yesterday where I was like I picked up my son from school and then I read some more and I was just like I am struggling to get through this.
Yeah, and historical fiction is like one of those genres that it's really it depends on the person if they like it or not. So I find like very few people really enjoy historical fiction, so it's completely understandable.
Yeah, there's not too many that like I'm trying to think of if any of the other like historical fictions that I have tried. There was one a long time ago in college that I attempted, and I didn't get through that one either. I don't think I've really tried much since because I know like I can't do it.
Yeah, I think Clint said that he didn't eh, wasn't able to either get through this one or like he didn't enjoy it as much because of the historical fiction aspect of it. And I think with for me, it has to be on a topic that I am really interested in, like historical fiction wise, like with witchcraft. With this one, it's like the main reason why I even picked it up in the first place. But I know The Lovely War by I think it's Libba Bray who wrote it. That has to do with like Greek gods, but it's set in wartime.
Mm-hmm.
So like just that aspect of it is interesting to me, and I started it a while ago and got a little way through it, but like ended up putting it down for whatever reason and just haven't gotten back to it yet. But I do want to get back to it and actually read it. Read it.
Yeah, I want to try that one as well, but I'm kind of leery with the whole like. I like that it's Greek mythology, but I also, like you said, it's wartime, and I don't know how I feel about that aspect. I did try to read it, but I didn't get very far, and then I was just like, I can't do this right now.
Yeah.
So,
And I used to be that way with romance too. I used to not couldn't get into romance stuff at all
mm,
unless it was like a small plot in like YA novels. That would be the only way I could get it. But strictly just romance novels, I couldn't get into it because I would be cringing too much. But now I just I read them from time to time and just kind of just laugh at some of them.
yeah, I just go, what? He did what now?
Yep. But yeah.
Mm,
Book two, The Return of the Witch. Isn't that the name of it? The Return of the Witch? Yeah.
yep.
April 1st, probably 1 o'clock. If there's any changes in the dates and stuff, I will let you guys know on the Twitter. But as of right now, that's the date to check out for the discussion. I did post the on the 1st of this month the next quarter's picks for for this book club. So check that out if you haven't already. I don't have the list in front of me at the moment, and my computer is probably going to fight me if I try to do anything else at the moment. So, but yeah, that went up a few days ago, so you'll be able to check that out. But yeah, thank you guys for if you popped in and out. Thank you for checking us out, and for those who watch at a later date, thanks for joining. And until the next time, you guys, bye.